Yeah.
That
Maybe Arizona could be the one, the first one, if there is. Well, maybe it'll be the only one, but the first big shock, if
of
you
the
like.
swing states. What's interesting here is, and her point was very well taken. You talk about the Latino vote, the Hispanic vote. It is a very different equation if you're looking at Florida, where it's been an extremely fiercely contested battle there, not called yet, but perhaps Joe Biden underperforming, in Florida, in Miami-Dade County, which is traditionally, one of the most densely populated, real vote getter for Democrats. Hillary Clinton outperformed, at least as of where we are right now at the count at this hour, outperformed quite considerably Joe Biden in that area of Florida. And you mentioned the Cuban Americans because, okay, so the Cuban Americans, you group them under the general rubric Latino vote. However, they tend to skew very hard Republican, and it is a giant community. Miami, 2/3 of the population is native Spanish speaking, many of them Cuban Americans. Arizona is one of these states when you talk about the fast changing demographics of America, and more specifically in the American West and Southwest, even looking at Texas as well, where those demographic battlegrounds, they're concentrated around the cities and the suburbs. And this is why it's possible to even flip those states. This is why we even talk about the remote possibility that Texas could turn blue. Texas hasn't voted Democratic since 1976. It could flip blue again for precisely the same demographic reasons, only on a much larger scale as Arizona there. The changing America. They say that soon whites will be in a minority in the next 10 to 15 years. Whites will be in a minority in America. These states, the Texas, the Arizonas, are really, Nevada to a certain extent as well, are really at the vanguard, if you will, of this very fast-changing demographic in the U.S. So regardless of the outcome of the election this year, it'll be interesting to see how that demographic played into the Democratic vote, because that is, once again, the story of the election. Donald Trump trying to get all of the surrounding areas with the white voters, mostly working-class white voters, but not getting that more minority demographic, although he's been getting more Latinos and black votes.
Doug, we're quite a long way now through our coverage. I have to say, no shocks.
That's just the beginning, Stuart. What do you?
Who knows? Who knows?
But we're just getting started here.
We haven't had any shocks, have we? No shocks so far. Does that surprise you?
No, I'm not surprised. No, actually, it's perhaps surprising that there is no surprise in a sense. And what I mean by that is there was a lot of pre-election day hype, if you will, a lot of talk about the possibility of one of those states perhaps going hard and early, one of those states being Florida or North Carolina or Georgia. Once again, none of them have been called yet. But the fact that we are at this relatively, advanced hour into the night, and it's getting late on the eastern seaboard of the United States as well, the fact that we're still staring at the map at those states, and it is so fiercely contested, and they are so close to call, that's a little surprising, given perhaps the high hopes that a lot of Democrats had placed on perhaps a hard flip of those states, which would make a powerful statement early in the night going in, lend a lot of momentum and wind in the sails, and more than just momentum, would give the Democrats many more options. So that's the crucial thing here, the paths to victory. There's a famous polling site in the U.S., 538, you've probably heard about. I think we've talked about it before. Yeah. Going into Election Day, 538 gave the chances of Joe Biden winning at 90%. Chances of Trump, 10%. Now, obviously, an election takes place in real time. It's a snapshot of a particular moment. So polls have to be taken for what they are. But that 90% suggested, at least, that in some of these states, there might have been a more clear trend, at least according to the polling, if you were to believe the polling, towards one of these states breaking a little earlier and harder for the Democratic side. The fact that hasn't happened is that a harbinger of what is to come in the hours ahead. But it is close to call, which means right now we are likely also to see a lot more litigiousness coming up. Those lawyers who have been deployed in their hundreds, if not thousands, battalions of lawyers to courthouses across the country, strategically in every state, they're licking their chops at this hour because they are gearing up perhaps for quite a little bit of a Donnybrook there later on.
We shall see. Doug Herbert is staying with us over the next few